Hey guys, welcome to the Center Bounce. Today is part 4 of the review week. Let's go. Big J, day 4, another
Yep.
set of teams. You excited?
Oh, mate, I love it. I love producing this nice content for all the fans. They've come in, they've taken the time and sent their teams in. We're reviewing them. Obviously, preseason games have just started at the moment, but we're still going to give our insights on everything.
Here we
Nice.
go. Tilly Taylor. We start there with 60K in the bank, which is a very nice number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, no, that's not a set. So it's 6 primos, only 3 in the mid. 7,
8.
8,
8.
9, 10, 11. So 11 primo team. Definitely on the lighter side in terms of primos, and also definitely going more mid-pricer. I could tell.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, interesting mid-pricer there. Allen, we know my thoughts on him. Worrell, Jones, Stocker, Cooper Stevens. So it is definitely trying to take the mid-price madness to the next level, and I think there's a lot of madness going on with this mid-pricer action here. This team embodies that. I think there are definitely better options in the mid-pricer category. You pick a mid-pricer because you expect them to well and truly, they're playing a different role, a role that has definitely Supercoach scoring friendly. That's going to see them average, at least 30 points above what they're priced at, which will get them 150 to 200K. That's all you're picking a mid-pricer for. You don't want to go speculative just for the purpose of trying to avoid fielding rookies. That's not what you're trying to do. You want to nail your mid-prices. If you're going to pick really speculative ones, it's going to really hurt your season moving forward. And I think there are a few speculative ones. I would definitely... The back line is where you have most of your value in terms of mid-prices and rookies. So paying for some really speculative ones in Worrell and Stocker probably isn't the way to go. Very light in the midfield. I would definitely have another mid at least in there. It's going to really hurt missing out on another big scorer in the midfield. And then obviously there's question marks over Blixarves and how Geelong like to structure up their ruck line. And then Jeffrey, who I think plays as a key forward for Gold Coast. I'm not a big fan. So I think there's a bit of work that has to go into it. Radigalia, I think, is a great shout out. And from what I had a quick glimpse at the Geelong game, he looks really good.
Yeah. Look, I really appropriate your team at probably a 50% completion of where we'd like to see it. I don't mind the premium picks. I think some people will say otherwise, but it's a lot of it's personal preference. It's more about, as Joe said, nailing the mid prices, nailing the rookies, giving yourself enough cash to be able to do so, which you've got with the likes of Phillips. We've spoken about English, starting the risk, that kind of thing. But you're really missing out probably on another midfield premium. I'd love for you to try and cut down somewhere and grab someone else. Keep Hopper, try and free up like 300K or something, grab a Green at least in that midfield. And then you're missing out on McKenna, you're missing out on Jinby in that back line. So maybe drop down a Worrell to a McKenna to free up enough cash to go like Cooper Stevens up, which would be a pretty good shout for your team. No Will Phillips is a travesty. You need to have him in. And just be careful as well of having too many rookies on field in that midfield. Like if Johnson has a bad game, let's say your starting team, right? If Johnson has a bad game, you're in a lot of trouble. If Edwards has a bad game, you're in a lot of trouble. These are people who aren't, proven scorers, who aren't necessarily dominating preseason as well as a Phillips and an Ashcroft are. So you really don't want to hamstring yourself like a lot of people did last year with a Ward or McKenna. Sorry, Ward or McDonald on field.
Yep, agreed. Thanks very much for sending in your team, Tilly. We now move to Sunil Daniel. Sorry, Sunil, if I'm butchering your name there. Very uncultured. I am very, very apologetic. We have Sicily, Doherty, Dacos, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. A 12 primo team seems to be building up to be the way to go. Moving forward, you've definitely paid up big in the mids. You're trying to commit, lock in some of these big boys that are going to be around come end of the year. Perfect. You've got Marshall banking on Grundy. Obviously, a wait and see. Have a look. Probably a bit light in the forward line with Sheasel and Humphrey at F4 and 5. And that's probably because you've paid up big time in the mid. Obviously, the price you got to pay. But you do have a lot of the good rookies. You know, you've got your Phillips, you've got your Ashcrofts, you've got your Jimby, Constable, Wilmot, So you've got the big names in terms of the cheaper prices. Probably fielding maybe, I think a lot of people are fielding one rookie in the back line. So, look, overall, structure-wise, I think you're paying up in the back line and midfield, which has caused you to be a little bit thin in the forward line. But, that's sort of the price that you got to pay. And if you think that there's value in both Sheasel and Humphrey, you think they're going to really outperform their price and make you guaranteed money, then that's your call. Obviously, fading at Cornelio. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I don't mind the team. As Joe said, you're paying up in certain areas. That kind of thing really comes down to having the 3 rookies on field in the midfield. We've just spoken about that with another team. You're going to be hamstrung versus teams that are running 1 or 2. And as much as it is to do other things in other spots, if you had a fully stacked forward line, for example, if you had a fully stacked back line, okay, running 3 or 4 rookies on field in the mids isn't the best, but it's something. Whereas it almost feels like a guns and rookies team that struggling to kind of finish a team. Maybe worth having a look at downgrading some of your more expensive rookies and upgrading to different spots. So, Humphreys and Sheasel could become a Flanders and somebody, or Oscar Allen, or even like a Ben King, kind of these more established players who you at least know are going to be best 22. And that's the same across the board. I think the back line had, two rookies, so that's good. But, if that was a more stacked position, I think you'd be a bit happier with the team. The forward line's a bit of an issue for me. I think you're really going to have games where those 3 pop out like 20s and 30s. Maybe not McLean, because he's set to play a lot of mid-time. But definitely Sheasel and Humphreys, they'd have a lot of bad games coming in the line. Just kind of, that's what happens with forward-playing rookies. And yeah, you don't want to be filling those scores as much as you can. The premiums are fine. It's personal preference. We've spoken about Laird and Oliver, kind of how we feel about them. But if you're comfortable, if they fit, we're not going to tell you which people to bring in.
Agreed. Correct. Thank you very much, Sunil Daniel, for that team. We now move to Mitch Nugent. Mm-hmm. I think that's how you pronounce it. You want to start us off, Big J?
Yeah, just bump it up a bit more. Yeah, a little bit more. Nice. So 3 in the back, 4 in the back line. 5, 6, 7, 8. Coming up to the mids. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Wow. So this is a bit of a pod team almost. A lot of players in here who necessarily we've not seen much of. I guess I don't mind the picks. You can kind of, if you're feeling great about Heaney, whatever. I think not having Dunkley is a bad choice. Himmelberg, it's personal preference. If you're happy to take on the risk that he's going to have some dud scores playing forward, that's on you. Draper, we've kind of spoken a little bit about. It's interesting kind of looking at it now. These teams were submitted, a few days ago. Looking at it now, it looks like he's not going to be playing solo ruck. So at 400K, he might only be scoring 10 points more, which really isn't that valuable for us in Supercoach. Spoken about missing Dunkley. Kind of just looking at the team overall, I don't mind having how many rookies you do have on field. I think you need to have better rookies in the forward line, like a McLean, that kind of thing. But it's the amount of midfield rookies that really do it for me. So 4 midfield rookies is really going to hurt you. Like really, this isn't 2018. You shouldn't be playing guns and rookies at this point in Supercoach. You really need to separate and spread out the money a little bit. Sometimes it's great starting the best 4 midfielders, or at least guys who you think are going to be top 8, top 10, but not at the expense of the rest of your team. And unfortunately, that's kind of happened for you right now.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Fielding a couple of rookies in the back line without, a McKenna, for example, might also hurt. No, not having Yo might also hurt. He's a big name that a lot of people have. A lot of people also have a guy like Caulfield in the back. So I feel like, as has been said a lot, the back line seems to be the place where a lot of value can be obtained, where you can go cheaper, you can afford to, to play a budget. All the rookies that are that are relevant are midfield or / defense or just purely defense. So yeah, I personally think overpaying in the back line for the big dogs and a bit of a gamble, a bit of a you're banking on Barras instead of like a guy like Hayden Young, for example. And that's up to you. Obviously, you get to pick the primos that you want. But speaking structurally, yeah, you're paying a lot for too few options. You're not spreading the cash well enough, I don't think. And yeah, I agree entirely. Having too many rookies on the field, 1, 2, 3,
a lot,
4, yeah, a lot of rookies on the field.
Rookies.
Yeah. So this is not the year for guns and rookies. I entirely concur with that. Thank you very, very much for your team. Mitch. Whoa. Michael Hull, why is your team at the bottom of a well in this picture?
I keep going.
That is unbelievable. For some reason, your second pick,
yeah, look at that.
First one is all the way down, regular hole. This one is I guess we'll just move on to the next one. Jennifer Stevenson, thank you for the team. 52K in the bank, very healthy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Another great 12 primo team. Only one rookie on the field in the forward line. I think that is the best structure that you can possibly have. Obviously, the question of whether or not Fife and Allen are good picks or not, time will tell. But structurally, I like having McLean at F6. I think that's the way to go. You're going conservative with Cameron at R2. We're hoping that he is number one ruck. Hoping that Cox doesn't eat too much into it. Otherwise, it is a bit of a dud pick, unfortunately. Paying up for Sicily Dawson, you have Faith and Dacos, 3 there. You got a couple of rookies on the field in the back line. Could be you've got Jimby there. You got 3 in the mids, 3 rookies in the mids. We've spoken a lot how we think three rookies in the mids isn't the way to go. If you could somehow have a mid pricer there, or have an extra primo, so that you can only have the two special rookies in Ashcroft and Phillips. Probably the best structure at this point in time for the mids. And I think, a bit speculative on Ryan, Wagner, Cowan, whether or not these guys actually play round 1. But you do have cash in order to pay up in the bank to make some sort of rookie correction come round 1. All in all, I think, though, I like the team overall. Thanks very much, Jennifer. Over to you, Big J.
Yeah, I don't mind it. It does feel a little bit like too much guns and rookies for kind of our preference at the moment. There's a lot of value in different positions, and paying up for full price, starting picks in Sicily and Dawson might not be the right direction to go for. Missing out on someone like a Young really hurts. And using that cash in different positions would help quite a lot, especially your ruck line at the moment with, people know kind of my feelings on Darcy Cameron. With a Sicily downgrade to Young, you could almost get Wits in for Darcy Cameron, and your team would look a lot better. Missing out on one of Rosie or Butters really hurts. I think Rosie in the preseason games is going to be fantastic, and kind of not having him could set you back quite a lot, because you don't want to have to pay an extra 150K potentially to bring him in. So just kind of something to think there. The amount of rookies on field isn't terrible. You've tried to match up and put a couple of mid prices, but it's probably not as much as I'd like in this kind of team. No McKenna, that kind of thing on the defensive bench probably hurts as well.
Yep. But thank you very much for the team. Jennifer, though, we now move on to Jake Hope. He's got a lot in the bank. He's got 178,800. Bro, what are you doing? You can't cash this in real life. You got to use your money. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He's got 12 primos with that much money in the bank. Very impressive. Allen, know my thoughts. McLean, Drury on field could easily be a Bruce there. Paid up, risking it with English. That's perfectly fine. You got to start him or you fade him. 3 rookies on the field. We've already discussed. We're not the biggest fans of that structure. And you've got 3 rookies in the back line without a yo. So one of these could easily become a yo to push McKenna to D6, which I think is the right way to go structure-wise. And probably, if you had another mid-price or another primo somehow here in the middle, paying up for Dawson, you think Dawson's going to have a lot of half-back role, which is where he scored his best. So, you can definitely go with him. You've paid for Young and Dacos, both offer a lot of value. I think there is a bit more value that can be got in the back line. But other than that, I think you've got all of the main rookies, and you've also got a decent structure, apart from obviously your F6 is probably where you're going to be a bit weak. Over to you, Big J.
I'd really love this team if you had downgraded someone like a Lockie Neal to a green and then upgraded someone like a Phillips to maybe a Flanders or a Callahan or someone like that. Overall, the team structure is great. Missing out on Yo probably hurts quite a lot. I think he's going to be one of the must-haves barring injury. But then that midfield is something we've spoken constantly about running 3 rookies on field. The problems with doing that. And you just don't want to get stuck doing that yourself. So that's kind of my views on that. The forward line's okay. I think there's a lot of value in running the awesome foursome, and not having that hurts because, I've got 4 premiums and 2 mid prices in the forward line, and my forward line just beats yours. So, you kind of have to match that level at this point. Obviously you might have some high scoring across the board in different positions, but kind of that starting off, it really hurts. You don't really want to overpay for a lot of players at the moment, just with the amount of value in Supercoach. And a lot of people are looking to upgrade at certain points. So, come round 6, Neil might be 100K cheaper. And that's 100K you could have used to upgrade your team and get, potentially better scoring on field. So just something to think there. Love starting the English pick. We've spoken about, the risk versus reward there. And rookies on bench are all right. So you've got enough money to kind of sling around as well. You're not hampered by having 102K rookies like we have seen a few teams over this week.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks very much for the team, Jake. We now come to Brock Chapman with a nice long screenshot there. I might just zoom in a bit and then we can sort of scroll down. You've got 43K in the bank there, which is, again, very healthy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Another 12 primo team. It seems to be that 12 primos hits this sort of sweet spot where you're able to field enough primos and mid prices without having to have a lot of rookies on field. It's limiting your exposure to sub rule and poor scores from being inconsistent. However, that hasn't stopped you still from fielding 2 rookies in the bench on the back line without a McKenna. Okay, that's an interesting selection. Yep, this midfield structure I think is definitely one of the best. If you're gonna have the 2 mid prices with the 2 special rookies there, it's a great midfield. You've got your value in Green and Mitchell. Interesting, you're going with Rob. That's a big, obviously one that you got to wait and see and have a close look at in these preseason games. You got Dunkley, Cornelia, Taranto, fading Rosie, who a lot of people are going with. So there's a bit of an anti-pod selection there. It might really suck if, for example, he goes big whilst you've got a Van Ruin at F6, comparing a second-year key forward to the sorts of scores that you might see, who hasn't even played a game yet. Exactly. So his second year in the system, training with Melbourne, but he hasn't actually played a senior game. You compare that to the sort of scores that you're going to see from a guy like Rosie, that one selection, that one spot is really going to hurt you in the long run. So I think if you can somehow fit Rosie and go with the Fab Four in the forward line, I think that would do a lot for your team.
Yeah. It's actually the first team I've seen that's actually, that's got O'Brien in there. So it's a very interesting pick. Kind of an off-field pod, but just have to wait and see what the Adelaide ruckline mix is going to be like. I think Strawn's coming in and going to take some time potentially. There's talk that Philthorpe's almost eclipsing O'Brien as well. So you really don't want to hear that out of a number one ruckman costing $560K. Massive red flag warning signs there. The back line's okay. I don't have a problem with it. No McKenna probably hurts quite a lot. No Jinby hurts a lot as well. There is some reports today that he's kind of done his toe, so we'll just wait and see what happens with that. But overall, kind of having the money for those more expensive rookies, I think will help to differentiate yourself versus this. Like if Weddle has a bad game, Wilmot has a bad game, Cowan has a bad game. These are all people who've never really played much AFL at all, or at all in general, and they're not mature age body plays either. So they have a bad first quarter or a bad first half, they could get subbed out, and that won't happen versus a lot of these more mature age players. So something to really look out for there. As Joe said, the midfield's great, no worries. Personal preference on the two big guys that you've got there. Bonts, obviously, I think there's a lot of value. If you had the chance, I'd probably go Laird over Oliver, but we can debate that as much as you want. If you had the extra 150K to get rid of Fife, boy, oh boy, your team would be looking a lot better. But it's tough, We're only given a certain amount of money. I agree with Joe about getting rid of Van Bruen, though. You really have to set and forget in that forward line. Set yourself up for success and then change it as you go. And you don't want to always have to worry about your F6 position every game.
Yeah, agreed. But thank you very much for the team. Brock, we now come to Shane Maddox. Thank you, Shane. Again, love to have the one-page screenshot with 160K in the bank. Again, another team that's not, not using all of the cash, and especially not in the back line either. 0 primos there. First one of the day that we've seen. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and you're picking Draper to be a primo as well. So we'll say 12. So it's a 12 iffy sort of primos because you've got Jackson, who's also on the cusp of maybe being a primo, Draper on the cusp, Warner on the cusp, LDU will, there's a bit of ifs, a lot of question marks over this team. Horn Francis, whether or not he can really up his output this year playing for Port. There's a lot of question marks I think, and you have to be analyzing these pracky games like even more than a hawk because you're going with these guys over the likes of Taranto, for example, or Rosie. You're paying a lot for mid prices. It's a mid-price madness sort of approach with a lot of question marks over the mid-prices that you've selected. Like you've gone with a Jones, for example, but you don't have a Yo, who probably is one of the epitome of a mid-pricer in the back line, him and Caulfield. So not having a Yo there is also really interesting. Phillips on the bench might be a bit of a waste to miss out on his good scoring, but hey, this is the trim structure that you've gone for. Very unique. It's very unique. I gotta say, you gotta be watching like a hawk, man.
Yeah. I don't say rethink your team very often, but I think with this team, it's definitely kind of warranted there. You've got some left field picks in Hewitt, Luke, Jackson, and Goulden as kind of your premiums in the forward line. But then also kind of the lack of strength at all in that back line. If you only had the back line to upgrade plus like one other player, I'd say go for it. No worries. But the fact that you've still got a lot of players left on field to upgrade, you've got the likes of Cameron and Draper who might not be the top players as well. You're really going to find yourself behind the 8 ball in terms of upgrades. And that's somewhere where you really don't want to be with a team like this. If your back line, as I say, had those players, okay, they're all best 22, they're going to score whatever. If the rest was stacked enough to cover them, go for it. But at the moment, it's not. And I think that's going to really hurt you in the long run. Yes, 160K is great. you can basically upgrade a player, but you might be finding that you're upgrading that player anyway, whereas it would have been better to start them instead of missing out on a couple of turns worth of scoring there. So kind of have a look at your team, watch the preseason games and go from there, really.
Yeah. But thank you very much for your team. Shane, we now come to Daniel Fulton. 15K in the back. Okay, so he's used his money. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, this is an 11 primo team. We've got 5 She's or King. Okay, starting with English. Your call. Sinclair, Dacos, Yokoff.
Wow.
Okay.
No Phillips on the plane. Oh boy.
No Phillips on the plane. Yeah, that's the big omissions.
Yeah.
He's got Horn Francis instead. Horn Francis down to a Phillips might be awesome. Sardis, he's been injured for a while, so unsure why you still got him clogging up a bit of money on the bench there, which you could very easily downgrade to a Phillips. Windhager is an interesting one. He could be, again, used as a tagger. Ross Lyon loved the tag when he was a coach. It's very possible that he could, again, and Windhager has shown that he has an ability to tag as well, like he did last year. So, interesting selection. It's a bit light in the back line, but you're making up for it by paying for, Jimby, McKenna. Caulfield is fine. Yo, also very good. Sinclair, you might be a St Kilda fan, just simply gauging off the selections that you've got there. I don't know if you're not, Daniel. Sorry for making assumptions, but I think also Sheasel has question marks over him, and I don't like a key forward. And Fife also has a bit of question marks over his head. Heaney, fading Dunkley for Heaney is a call that I personally can't back. I think that structure has a lot to do with also the picks that you have with your primos. I think that there's a lot of mid-price madness that's happening here. That's a bit more on the madness side than on the clever side, personally.
Yeah, it's an interesting team, kind of a little bit left field, I guess, than what you'd kind of be expecting from a lot of people. A lot of players who maybe you think will score quite well, but the value and the price might not be there. So guys like a Horn Francis, he's valued at what? Let's check. I'll pull up my calculator 1 sec. So Horn Francis is at a 63. For him to be valuable in Supercoach, he really needs to start pumping out like an 80 plus. I just don't know if the scoring's there. Maybe an 85 to even a 90 to actually be viable as an option in Supercoach. I just don't know if it's there. The same with a couple of other players there. Guys like Windhager, totally track their progress. You might get a really nice pod out of it, but not at the expense of structure along other lines, not at the expense of some of the more expensive good players. Missing out on someone like a Dunkley really hurts. A Phillips and a McLean as well. These are the high ownership players that you're almost forced to bring in just for the fact that everyone else has got them as well. So something to definitely be wary of there. Your projected score's kind of muddled a little bit by the fact that Cameron's injured, but I'm just not a huge fan of the pick either. I think you can probably do a bit better downgrading some of your more expensive rookies who are on the bench. I don't mind the Jinby pick, that kind of thing, but guys like Sardis, like Joe was saying, I think you had Sheasel in the forward line as well. It's not the greatest thing. You don't want to forego stacking your midfield and missing out on the really good midfield rookies to lose out on different positions on field. And I think you're wary of that, and you're going to end up being behind in upgrades compared to everyone else.
Thank you very much for the team, Daniel. Another one with a very small team. Okay. We get to Paul Morrison. Thank you, Paul.
I'm not sure what happened to the structure here. Maybe it's like an app thing. The app
I was thinking like this might be on an iPad screenshot or something, the way it's able to stretch so wide. But Thanks for the team. 13,000. You've used your money. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 primos. Very nice. Like to see it. So it's paid up for 3. Great there with Yo and McKenna. Goda, obviously there's question marks whether he's best 22, his role could be a Jimby or who you've got in your mids. Mills as M1, question marks over Mills. He has a ceiling like no other, but obviously with the report that he could be, playing all over the place, whatever the team needs him to play, could obviously
watch our Mills preview video for that.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to deep dive into Mills. Andy Brayshaw, great player with a great starting fixture as well. Green Mitchell. Yep, so you're going 4 primo mids with Hopper, Ashcroft Phillips are there. Great. Probably one too many in the mids. In terms of rookies, as we've said many times, English you start or you fade. You've started him. Best of luck. And you've gone with 3 of these guys. You don't have Canelio. You've instead opted to go more mid-price in terms of Fife and Allen. Question marks as well as people to have a look at. But at least you've got McLean at F6. And I think that's the best spot for him on the field. So overall, structure-wise, I think it is a very healthy team that just needs a bit more, that just needs a lot of attention in the preseason.
Yeah. I don't mind the picks in the team. As Joe said, Mills, no Canelio, that kind of thing, something to look at. I just think you need to try and shy away a little bit from going guns and rookies, which is what this kind of feels like. Having three in the mids, 2 or 3 in the back line, same in the forward line, to going a little bit more mid-price heavy, especially in that midfield. Just kind of the trends and the pick-up on value that a lot of people have got. You're going to end up being behind in scoring if you don't kind of move towards that. You can be different if you want, but sometimes being with the pack and then upgrading well and playing a good season helps quite a lot, maximizing your advantages. And right now, I think you're probably 1 or 2 players behind some of the teams we've seen today and this week.
Yeah. But thanks very much for the team. Paul, we come to Jason Hiscock. Okay, 59K in the bank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 primo team. But McLean at F4 is, I think, quite light in the forward line. Something that is probably might come to bite you in the backside with people who have a Rosie in his place. Instead of having a Bruce, someone might have a mid-price like a Flanders or a Windhager. And instead of a Richards, you have a McLean there. So you've instead of, it's you're going to be leaking points in the forward line, that's for sure. Grundy, obviously, watch him like a hawk. Watch how Melbourne structure up. Back line, 3 primos, Yo, Jimby Wilmot. I think that's fine structure. If you could somehow fit in, for example, like a Caulfield to have maybe or a McKenna, I think is also a really important player that you could somehow fit in. You've got the cash, so you can pay up for like a Fahey, for example, to upgrade him to a McKenna, and your team will look a lot better. But overall, I like the structure of the team. 2 mid-prices there, the magical 2 rookies there. So the dynamic duo. Thanks for the team, Jason. I actually like the structure of this.
Yeah. The back line, top notch. I think McKenna is probably a good shout as well. Maybe for some, if you've got enough cash to offload someone else and grab him in. Josh Kelly's an interesting pick, but you do what you like. No Titch or Green could be very interesting. Wait and see with that at the moment. I liked only 2 rookies on field though. Keep going down, Joe. Cool. And that forward line. Okay. I can take it. It does feel like you're probably one mid-price or 1 premium short in the forward line. Maybe you can free up some cash somewhere else and upgrade, as Joe said, a Bruce to like a Flanders or somebody. Try and get Richards off the field. So, it's easy to do a swap of Philippou and Richards and then the team looks a bit better. But some teams are batting 6 deep in the midfield. In the forward line. So, kind of just have to be careful there.
Yeah. Cool. But thanks for the team, Jason. Well on the way. We get to Dan Cussin. Please, I hope you're not cussing me out after this one. 55K in the bank, 900. Not too bit of money there to play with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Primo team. You love to see it. You're paying up for the two big dogs in the mids. You're paying up for the big dog in the ruck. You're paying for the big dog in the forward line. And you're paying for Doherty in the back line. So I love it. You're cementing players in your team who you think are going to be top of their lines. Mason Redman, I love the Red Dog. Great shout. One that you've really got to watch. We're playing right now as we speak against Gold Coast. So after you finish watching this, jump onto KO, wherever you are, and start watching that and get an idea of the sort of role that Redman has, with how he interacts with Ridley. Dacos, great shout. No McKenna, interesting. But of course, there are sacrifices that are made. Yeah, he's got the money. You can't go on Montgomery up to him though. So you're hoping that yes, he has had a promising preseason, but of course there's no guarantees with 102K rookies. Wardlaw, yeah, you know what Big J's take is on having three rookies in the forward line,
especially Wardlaw, who's currently recovering from injury.
Yeah,
and not playing.
Yeah, I'll actually just pass it on to you. Might as well carry on, mate.
I don't mind the team. I feel like you're moving towards a more guns and rookies style with having 3 in the midfield, 3 in the forward line, similar to the defense as well. I think you probably just need to rethink adding a few more established players in. Bruce, and that's fine. If the pick works out, it's fantastic. But I love him on the bench and not on the, not potentially scoring in the midfield. Sorry, scoring in the forward line on the field for you. So kind of just something to think about there. You really want these consistent established players and a guy that's never, played that position in a somewhat full back line at the Dogs. You're likely to get 20s and 30s and 40s, which is not what you want from guys on field. As we said, McKenna in the back line would be great. Not sold on Redmond. I think someone like a Young is a much, much better pick. And sometimes it's good to go with the curve when this happens. You don't want to pick the guy that's wrong and have all those people last year that had to offload, Ridley at a much cheaper price, offload like a Whitfield at a much cheaper price because they kind of were way behind the 8 ball. And you just don't kind of want that to happen. If Redmond works out, fantastic. But sometimes these picks, it's kind of good to go with the herd there. Otherwise, yeah, the team's fine. Paying up for the most too expensive guys means you won't have to triple upgrade or double upgrade to bring them in. But, it's obviously costing you a little bit in other areas as well. Spending, $1.5 million on 2 players is tough. That's like 15% of your money on 2 players. Doesn't leave you a lot of space across the board in other positions.
No, and that's why you end up having a guy like Wardlaw at M7. But thank you very much for the team, Dan. We get to Aaron Jewell. Aaron showing off his bling with the projected scores here. Gold.
Supercoach gold. I love it.
Yes, indeed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 primos.
Yep.
Not 12 because Zeeble. You're not picking Zeeble to be a primo. He's a maybe primo. A bit like how people saw Canelio last year as a maybe hopeful primo, but unlikely. You have to keep a close eye on him in the preseason. Same thing with Fife. Keep a close eye. King, my thoughts on key forwards. Phillip, who will be playing forwards, but by all reports, he's been absolutely tearing it up. And the Phantom actually put up some of his Supercoach scoring from his junior days, and he has he does look really good. So he's a fair. Yeah, but it's still a shout. It's a shout. It's good in terms of only 2 rookies in the mids. We like that here. Warpball, though, one that you got to keep an eye on. You can, he's playing right now against Geelong, so you can definitely switch there afterwards. What else is there? Yo, Brayshaw. Okay, paying up in the back line for 3 primos and a Yo, which is very strong. Go to Jimby. Obviously, if you could have a McKenna, which I think my maths fails me right on the spot. If Ryan could somehow, with that money, get flipped into a McKenna, then I'd like that back line a lot. But all in all, great structure. I think you're on the way. You've given up some value not having Marshall, but all in all, I think it's a good team.
Yeah, I don't mind the team. No Yo in the back line is very interesting. Kind of not paying, missing out on the pick, kind of a guaranteed guy who should make your 150K accelerate you to a premium there. I really feel this team is more of a wait and see and assess again in the preseason, after the preseason games. You've got a lot of mid-prices in the team across the board, a few premiums who you're kind of hoping that they come out and they play well. If this was, the team the day before round one, I'd have a lot more concerns in the team than kind of what I've got at the moment. So really good there. Just swap across to the forward line, Joe. Yeah, really good team, but it's more of a just wait and see. Guys like Fife, your Warpool, Zeeble, that kind of thing. Even O'Brien. There could be cheaper, better options, but hold out for now. Watch the preseason games, enjoy some footy, reassess at the end of the week.
Nice. Very nice. Thank you, Aaron. We get to Matthew. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But you're picking Meek to be a 12, I'm pretty sure. You're picking Meek to be a primo, to be a keeper. And I'm not sure that he is that. So definitely one that you have to keep an eye on. But it's unlikely given that he's going to be sharing ruckload with Reeves. No Dunkley, major omission. No Canelio. He's gone Butters instead of Rosie. Rosie gives you you might think Butters might outscore.
No Dunkley too.
Yeah, I know. I mentioned that. No Dunkley, no Canelio. You're going Butters over Rosie, which again is your selection. But of course, you got to remember that missing out on, but not having Rosie, you're not protected from the big scores that he has. You feel every point that Rosie scores when the vast majority of players have him. I'm not a big fan of key forwards, as you know. You've got 2 here. No Ashcroft. Yeah, no Ashcroft. First team that we've reviewed without Ashcroft in the team. Ballsy decision, if you don't mind me saying, Matthew. Definitely one to have a close eye on. But he almost seems like he's going to play and have good midfield minutes for that Brisbane team, and he should be able to make you that money. Fielding a Johnson who's going to be playing on a wing for Freo probably won't even net you close to the same amount of scoring that you'll get if you had a guy like Ashcroft there. But other than that, I think the team is fairly structured. There's a bit of tinkering that you need to do, I think, but it's fairly structured.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about going antipods or going against the tide, but don't do it kind of heading into round one. You get a lot of slack and a lot of leeway in your teams by playing the guys and fielding the people who are, 60% owned, 50% owned. If they work out, fantastic. If they don't work out, you're not hurt. But if you don't pick them at all and they work out, you're kind of screwed. So as Joe said, no Ashcroft, no Dunkley. These players who are 50, 60% owned by the entire competition. That's happening for a reason, right? You're not somehow smarter than half the competition. You've got some magic formula. Maybe if you've done a Doc Brown and gone into the future, you can look at Lloyd Meek. He's going to come out and do a Wits 2022, just demolish everyone, be the most expensive player. Then great, start him. But unless that happens, you kind of have to go with the tide a little bit. Have a look at Meek, for example, what's happening with him and Ned Reeves. I know these teams have come out a few days beforehand. They're not brand new teams, but watch the preseason games for those kind of things. You're missing out on a couple of premiums in the forward line, and the rest of your team really isn't taking advantage of that. It's feeling a bit like you've paid up for a lot of mids, you've played up for a couple of defenders, and then the rest of the team's struggling a little bit. The back line's not bad, but no Dacos and no Young, really. So just have a rethink, watch the preseason games, kind of reassess what other people are doing, and then see who are the big scorers across the board. You may have to change a few players across.
Yeah, it really feels like you're being tentative with your trying to go for value where you can. It seems like you're half committing to playing value, but then overpaying in other places. It's like you got to really commit to really make the most of it. You can't be half in, half out on these sort of things. You end up with a bit of a mishmash of the team. But thanks for the team, Matthew. We get to James McMahon, 20K in the bank. 1, 2. Newman. Okay. I think you pick Newman at 440K. You're picking him to be a keeper, I'd imagine, at that price point. So 1, 2, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, 7.5 there. So we'll say 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, we'll say overall, mathematically speaking, it's an 11 primo team. Okay, so Brown, first I've seen of him. Heaney, another one who dreams of Heaney, who's a believer. And instead of a Canelio or a Rosie, big calls, King and Bruce. Look, you know my thoughts, but if you swing that way, then all the power to you. Newman's an interesting one, man. Cowan, unsure if he's best 22, if he plays round 1. Got to keep a close eye on both of these guys. But for 441K for Newman, man, you must really believe in this guy. You've seen something that nobody else is. So, good luck with that one. Drury at M8 without Ashcroft. Yeah, big call selection there. And Horn Francis with 5, both in the mids. I definitely think there are much better mid prices in the midfield.
Yeah. It's interesting. Maybe the Newman pick, there's some stat that's come out that's like, hey, with no Zach Williams in the team, he comes out and scores a 150 or something. So we'll just have to wait and see with that. But the structure looks good, the amount of rookies and things like that. But picking someone like a Horn Francis over Hopper, for example, is just madness. Neil and Touk Miller is fine, but you expect them to drop in cash a little bit. Like not having a Bont, picking a Draper over a more established player is great, but you have to kind of pay for it in the rest of the team. If you had a lot of premiums, let's say you're running 13 premiums and Draper, I can see the appeal of a Draper. You hope he does well. If not, makes a little bit of money, you can offload him. But you're not taking advantage of having a cheaper ruck line across the board there. It's kind of just how I'm feeling at the moment. No Ashcroft is I think, a mistake, as we just spoke about the other team, picking these high, expensive, ownership players. It works out quite well. Heaney, I think you'll be able to get at a much cheaper price as well. So, that's kind of my feelings there.
Thanks so much, guys, for joining in and watching this episode, which was number 4 of the Team Review Week. Please like, share, subscribe if you liked. Hit the notification bell. There's still more episodes to come. And we're going to be discussing all of these preseason games, guys. It is lit right now. Please stay tuned.
Yeah. And remember, guys, a lot of teams at the moment have got digital memberships happening, and I think you get free KO with those as well. So if you're not someone that can make games, but you want to watch the footy throughout the year, might be something to jump on with. We've got our Supercoach group. So you guys subscribe to the channel, like us on Twitter, and you can win some amazing prizes there. Any final words, Joe?
Remember, guys, we do the hard work so that you don't have to. Bye for now.